This is one of those things where you really couldn't predict this alignment. We have 419 and 420 landing on the church's annual Easter event. I couldn't even make this up. Obviously, Bicycle Day 419 is the anniversary of the first time that acid was done, and it's widely celebrated. So fitting for a psychedelics conference. 420 is the cannabis holiday. We started as a cannabis church, and cannabis is very deep in my blood and my passions. But it's also the anniversary of the Marsh Chapel experiment. This was probably the most significant scientific study trying to connect psilocybin use to religious experiences. And the history of that is amazing. It's one of those stories where you just got to hear it. I just did a podcast with Rick Doblin where he went through the history of it in depth and talked about his connection to it. But in short, they dosed a whole bunch of religious people in the basement of the Marsh Chapel in Boston University. And this was done by Timothy Leary and a bunch of the other psychedelic titans from back in the day. But they dosed a whole bunch of people with psilocybin on Good Friday while somebody was giving a sermon upstairs. And what they were able to show is, yes, it does produce a religious experience. In my own path, that's absolutely what I've seen. The church, to talk about our foundation, we have a story that came actually out of high dose work that describes the first time that we ever encountered mushrooms. And that's the foundation of what our beliefs are. We call it the religious evolution doctrine. And the story goes, about 2.5 million years ago, when the world was going through great climate change, we were forced out of the forest into the grassland. And this is something that science backs up too. That's about the time that we started evolving. The person who is on the dose who saw this, the first thing they came into was they were a survivor of a great fiery apocalypse. Other survivors found them, and this was the days before language. They were able to effectively communicate, it kind of looks like us, it probably is one of us. And they helped this person survive in the new world. The first thing they had to do was find shelter. The next thing was to find food. If you're an ape that's living in the trees, you know a few things. You know you can eat bugs, generally. And if you see a bug eating something, you can probably eat it too. So it was following a trail of bugs that first led us to the mushrooms. One brave ape ate the mushrooms while the others sat back and watched what would happen to them. And that first experience by the first pre-human ancestor was the first time that we knew there was anything more to this existence. One of the really interesting things about psychedelics is regardless of what language you speak, you get communication. And this very first lesson was one of language. There are more things to communicate, there's more things to tell, and there are ways to do it. There's something that we've been working on for a long time, which is a story of the tribe that first came across the mushrooms, and eventually we'll have a book that we go into this in more depth. But the mushrooms are what first helped us survive in this new world, and they're what first showed us that there's more to this existence. Using these doses, you can see things and gain knowledge that are hard to describe, things that do not come from you. If you're an ape trying to survive in this new world, learning lessons like how to use fire or how to make fire, those are completely possible out of this work. The other thing that's the most important part of this work is understanding that you have a soul. Everyone in this room, everyone who's hearing this, you all have souls. Understanding what your soul is and why you came here is the most important thing that anyone can do. And this work gives us direct access to be able to do that. One experience that many people share when doing large doses and breakthrough doses is visiting the place before everything existed. In the ceremony where I experienced it, I was ripped out of my body, pulled through heaven and hell, every dimension in between, and ended up in a place of pure light. I didn't exist, nothing existed, there was but this one consciousness. And especially on my early work, I got some very clear messages. What I got was a question with a couple answers. If you were God, what would you ask yourself? If you were the creator of everything, the knower of everything, what might you not know? The only thing you might not know is, what am I? And that's where I experienced the Big Bang, the creation of space and time, and all that exists. God created everything to experience everything, to understand what it is. We were all God, experiencing ourselves in every way possible. Now, when you get into what reality actually is, there's a lot of people who, the simulation theory, especially with AI, has been a big one lately. And are we in a simulation? Yes. Is this simulation ones and zeros? No. It's so much more than that. It's so much more powerful than that. The simulation is God creating everything to experience everything in every way possible. So what that means is the science that is touched on multiple timelines and multiple possibilities. God needs every experience in every way to understand what it is. So there's a timeline when every individual that's hearing this, you're the president. We're not in that timeline, unfortunately. But every experience happens. You trip over something, well, there was a timeline you didn't. Or there's a timeline that instead you got hit by a car. Every possibility is happening, and this is God trying to understand itself. So it's not just ones and zeros, and it is so much more powerful than something we would define as a simulation. It is the actualization of God creating everything to understand what it is. What is your soul? So there's many analogies that I've heard this from rays of light to data structures. The way I like to describe it is an octopus. And this is a metaphor. I'm not actually saying that you are an octopus. But an octopus with unlimited number of tentacles. Each time it dips one of those tentacles into space and time, it becomes one of us. Understanding what your soul is and why you came here is the most important thing that anyone can do. You are all so much bigger than what you feel as this self. There is something much bigger, much more powerful that came here to be you. Often when people pray and they feel a presence and they feel a connection, what you're actually feeling is your soul. God created everything, so that is also God too. But what's closest to you and what cares about you most and wants you to do the best is your soul. This high dose work, and really there's many ways to reach it, but when you're on your path in life, when you're doing what you came here to do, everything feels nice and easy. Everything is laid out in front of you. It feels like you're walking down a nicely well-lit path, and everything is just there for you in every way possible. Understanding what your path is and why you came here solves many of the issues that people are having today. If you don't feel right, you feel depressed, you feel like you don't want to be here, it's probably because you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. Oh, and how I broke my arm. So This is a great example of being on the wrong path. I have a 3-year-old, and he is incredibly cute and incredibly adventurous. And I made the mistake of letting him guide me down a trail, somewhere I'd never been, and there was a lot of signs along the way, but we kept pushing forward. Again, I thought I was being fun. I was letting him explore. We ended up on this trail that got really small, and then there was poison oak and a fallen tree, and there was a lot of signs that I should have just turned around, but I felt safe and maybe a little overconfident, and I kept letting him go. I figured we were at Tilden Park here in the Berkeley Hills, and it's a really safe area, and what could happen? So the trail reaches a larger trail, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, well, this seems like a better path. Maybe this is the right one. I travel down it, we go, and then we end up in this place that's really creepy. It's behind a building up there, and somebody's hauled out a space under some trees, and there's a vase of white roses, which generally means somebody died there. So there I am with my 3-year-old. The only way to get out, there was a way around the building that would be off a cliff, and there was another way around that was through some bushes. We got to a point where I could see the path, and it didn't look like too big of a deal. It was about a 5-foot slide down a little hill. I think I'm going to hold on to this branch and lower myself down, and then get him. Well, the mud didn't agree with me. So I was holding on to this branch with all my force, thinking I could kind of lower myself down a couple feet and then safely catch my kid. And well, then I ended up breaking the top part of my bone that connects to the rotator cuff, and now I'm going to be like this for a few months at least. But I was clearly on the wrong path. There were many signs, and the path that we got to was absolutely the right path. It was a well-paved road with benches and trash cans, and the very appropriate thing to go on a walk with your 3-year-old. There are signs when we're on the wrong path. Oh, there's what I did to myself. The wrong path is not going to feel comfortable, and you very well might hurt yourself. I often describe it metaphorically like climbing up a hill where the bushes are hitting you, everything is smacking you left and right in the face. You don't want to be there, and you are getting those signs. You just need to be able to listen to them. And if you don't listen to them, sometimes bad things happen, and you'll eventually understand that you need to find your way back. So how to get to the right path? Pay attention to the signs. If you're walking down a path and it's just you and a 3-year-old and you see poison oak around you and then a fallen tree, maybe it's time to turn around. It might be fun, but there are always signs, and it always doesn't feel comfortable. The work that I am most passionate about and that we talk about the most through the God Sitters program is high dose work. This is some real tea. That's actually tea. There's no food coloring there. There's nothing. That is just psilocybin mushrooms and a very, very strong tea. The breakthrough dose is not necessarily for everybody, and it's something you got to be very careful about. If you go too far, you will not enjoy it. And if you go really too far, you won't remember what you did. Working your way up to the right point, connecting with your soul to understand who and what you are and why you're here, that's how you get on the right path. We all came here for a reason. The only way we will actually know if that's the right reason is one, look, everything in your life feels great, you feel like you're walking down the path and everything is good and there's no problems in front of you, you're doing the right thing. If you're not, and you're having challenges, being able to get in touch with your soul and ask why you're going through that is the only way you're actually going to know. I can't tell you. No book can tell you. But there is a way to do it. You don't always necessarily have to take a breakthrough dose. Many people find on the lower doses that they can get a lot of the same guidance too. But if you want to have the direct experience and be confronted by your soul, that's the only way to do it. At least that I know of. The other thing that comes out of this work is deep knowledge. Things that are not coming from you, that are hard to understand. One of the problems that's going on in the world today is words can be magic and entities can live in sound. What we see through social media, what we see through TV, the rumors that we start between people, the conversations that get lost, there are entities being passed. There are spells being cast. And we really need people to understand this a lot more. Everyone is being controlled by these narratives, by these books, by what we see in the algorithms. We are so much more than that. We can harness this same power, but you have to learn how to use it. I can't teach you. Doing this work can. Casting a spell in a way that can change the world is much easier said than done. If it could just easily be done and we could set the world aright, we would. But it's going to take much more than that. Something that I believe in a lot and has become kind of a new mantra of mine, and hopefully a lot more out of that, is this concept that dignity unites humanity. The only way we're going to all be able to come together is to understand that we all deserve dignity. What that means may be different to everybody, but there's a bare minimum that we can do and we should get to in society. I would love to live in this world where if you are born, you get the bare minimum to survive: shelter, food, clothing, medical care. I'm not saying we need to be passing out private jets or mansions. If you want one of those things, you can build on top of that. But we need to be able to provide dignity to all of humanity for us all to come together, regardless of our personal beliefs, regardless of our personal experience. The one thing we share, everyone wants to feel dignity. And I hope that we can create a world to do that someday. The church is far from being able to do that on our own, but I believe psychedelics can bring us there. I think once you understand that we are all the same, you hear we are all one. We are divided in many ways, but we are all human. Beyond that, we are all gods. Beyond that, we are all God. Many different levels of this, but we are all the same thing, and we all deserve dignity, and we all deserve to give each other dignity. Well, I'm going to make this a little shorter than I intended because I want to make sure that I can smoke on 420, at 420. I know motivations. If they would let me smoke on stage, I might have gone a little bit further, but thank you all for being here. Definitely check out the church's website if you haven't, ambrosia.church. We have a lot of really good information up there, including dosage calculators to keep people safe, information on how to set the right environment, tips on what you might experience at these large doses. But I want to open it up for any questions. Anybody want to ask me anything? Well, okay, so the question is, what sort of things are you going to expect, or can you expect when you understand your soul? Well, first off, that's a much bigger thing. You're not going to do one dose and just understand it. But understanding who you are and what you're here to do, that gets you back on the path. If you truly understand those things, you can get through anything. And you can get to this point that I speak of where it feels like everything's easy in front of you. Now, again, you got to be doing what your soul came here to do. So even if you understand it and you start walking in the wrong direction, it's going to remind you. But it's the clarity to understand that you exist beyond this body. There's a reason that you came here, and there's something you're supposed to do. Yeah?
I used to have a place where I could go and do high doses of mushrooms and other things. That's no longer accessible to me, and I no longer know where to find somebody to help me do those things, which I would really like to do. How does one go about, especially since I'm not local anymore to the Bay Area, I'm just not around it all the time, makes it difficult to find something like that. Where would you suggest looking?
Yeah, that's a good question. The truth is, you don't actually need much to do the high dose work. You need the mushrooms. Yeah, well, so one of the most important things is that you have somebody with you that can do the human things that you can't, right? So the biggest help is really making sure that if the building catches fire, if somebody knocks on the door, if there's some sort of human issue you have to deal with when you're in these spaces, that there's somebody that you can trust to do it. If you can find that, they don't need to be a shaman. They don't need to be a therapist. They just need to know that, hey, leave you alone, let you go through your deep work. I've got the space held down. If you're looking for a specific place to do it, the church has a program where we do this. To find it, it's info@Godsitters, and that's God's Sitters, so there's 2 S's there. But we do have a place in the Oakland Hills where we do this for people. The way that we do it is there's 2 sober sitters and 1 person on the dose. The sitters are literally there just to make sure that the environment is safe. The person on the dose is downstairs in a white room with nothing on the walls and a bed on the floor. What we want is as little distractions as possible, but for you to feel completely comfortable that nothing bad will happen and the people around me know what to do if anything happens. But if you're looking for somebody to hold your hand through it, what you need is to find your soul. That's what's going to hold your hand through it. You need to have the trust that there is something there. And these can be really painful and show you some really deep things that you need to deal with. But you need to deal with it. And the thing you're going to be interacting with, your soul, lives outside of space and time. It knows what you went through, it knows what you have to go through, and it knows why you went through it. So there's no better therapist, there's no better shaman to guide you than your soul. It's just making sure that you know how deep you're going so you don't go too far, and that you have somebody around you that can hold down the space just to make sure that, again, if somebody knocks on the door, you don't have to worry about it. You do have to have the right space. You don't want to do this around kids. You don't want to, you have your kids in the house and you might have to deal with them and you're on a bunch of mushrooms. That's a really bad idea. So you want to have a private environment, ideally with only one or two other people there that you really trust. And you can do this anywhere. But don't feel like you have to have a shaman holding your hand. You do need to know what dose you're doing. If you don't have tested mushrooms that you got from our church that have or a way to know your potency level, the old method, the traditional method, is you take a little bit and you just go on that first, and that will help you gauge how strong the mushrooms are and slowly work your way up. You can always eat more, you can never eat less. And there's levels of work to be done at each of these. So once you get to know the mushrooms that you're working with, you'll know how deep you need to go. And just don't, the biggest advice is don't pay attention to the number of grams, whether it's 2 grams or 50 grams. The potency of mushrooms these days is so crazy that there are 2 grams that can be stronger than 50. So it's really important that whatever you're working with, you use a consistent amount and slowly work your way up. Right.
About medical considerations, blood sugar, heart, and interference of other medications. Is there some place to go to get guidance around that?
Yeah, we try to provide all the information we can on the Church of Ambrosia's website. As far as that, I'll have to verify that everything's up there. We've learned a lot on that. Probably the biggest danger is around heart problems. So, extremely important for anybody to know, if you've had a transplanted heart, do not do mushrooms. There is a case of a 25-year-old woman who did a larger dose of mushrooms, who had a transplanted heart, and her body rejected her heart. There haven't been enough studies around it, but I don't necessarily recommend anybody who has a transplanted organ do any sort of psilocybin or even psychedelics, because the way I see it, it's waking up your body. So if your body wakes up and there's something that's not supposed to be there, or that thing wakes up and is like, whoa, where's the rest of me? I deal with religion, not science. I'm sure there's some doctors that would give you some sort of better explanation of why that's happening. But definitely transplanted body parts, not good. Transplanted heart, really bad. Other heart problems, these experiences can be incredibly intense, and it depends on what you have to go through. Generally, especially as people are first getting into them, they tend to be a little bit nicer before they get a little bit harder. But the more of this work you do, the harder those things will be. And for example, one of the things that I talk about is one of the more difficult experiences that I've had was experiencing nuclear death outside of time. So I made a mistake. It was on purpose. I should have done it, but I would have liked to not do it. But I went into a high dose right after Russia attacked Ukraine for the first time and focused my ceremony on that. And the first thing I encountered was experiencing nuclear death outside of time. So if you're worried about, what happens if your heart starts racing, like that, how the experience could actually be more dangerous than any physical interactions between anything, I definitely recommend anybody that has heart problems or, is potentially sensitive in any sort of ways to those things, like when don't go into a dose focusing on a major world war. So that's I definitely recommend you don't do that. But as long as you have good people around you and you're not going too deep, I think the heart problems aren't as big of an issue. Again, outside of the transplant. Blood sugar and those things, there's a lot more that needs to be done. I really look forward to the point where science is doing more of those things. We had Robin Carhart Harris on earlier, and he's doing some really interesting things at UCSF, but that's something I should probably talk to him about is what studies can they do around those things. They aren't studying the doses that we do yet. Their dose, just to give you an idea of where science is compared to what we're doing. So currently, most studies are done at about 25,000 micrograms of pure psilocybin. And this is regardless of body weight, regardless of any other factors. The reason that's a fairly safe range is a 125-pound person will reach the start of what we call the breakthrough dose. But what that is closed-eyed strong visuals. So you open your eyes and you don't really see anything. That range from I perceive that I'm on mushrooms to that range of you're seeing closed-eyed visuals is pretty big. So the 25 for most people is following in that range. The work that we do is the closed-eyed strong visuals is the start. So we know that you've reached the breakthrough dose when you close your eyes and you don't care about the white walls in the room. You're seeing way too much, you're hearing way too much. You know, it's actually kind of thankful when you open your eyes and it is just white walls. As you go up from there, by the time you hit about 150% of your breakthrough dose, that's where you get the open-eyed strong visuals. So for me, I'm about 260 pounds, so the start of my breakthrough dose would be 56,000 micrograms. And that's the start. So that's double where any of their studies are doing. And for me to reach that 150%, that's somewhere around 76, 77,000 micrograms. That's basically 3 times what science is currently looking at. So a lot of the deeper medical interactions, we need science to study those. We don't really have a lot of good data. I can tell you on the blood sugar side of things, we always tell people to fast for at least 24 hours. These can be really rough on your body, so if you fast first, you're not going to, very likely not to get any purging, and the less shit in you, the less shit's going to come out of you. So, but that does mean that a lot of people go in with probably a relatively low blood sugar. We don't have any problem if they have clear liquids, you know, even sugary beverages necessarily before the ceremony. So it hasn't really been something that we've focused on of like what's the difference between going in low blood sugar or high blood sugar as actually paying attention to it. But I think we might as well start. You know, anybody that's fasted purely on water obviously is going to have a lower blood sugar. And that is something that I'll definitely make sure we start paying attention to at the God Sitters program. Anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, I just had a question about follow-up care, and I mean that in like a twofold sense of like, I would say the first part of that is like more like immediate like follow-up care of like then the next like few hours to day after the experience. And then the second phase of that would be in like the days and weeks following that experience, how to properly, I would say, integrate such an existential out-of-body experience back into like the physical corporeal realms of like where we're interacting now.
Yeah, great. Yeah, both very important. So after the ceremony, which the way we do it, you fast for 24 hours, you do the tea on an empty stomach, it's fairly predictable of 2 to 4 hours of people actually being on the dose. After they get out, they're still on psilocybin, they're just back in their body and they can talk to you. One of the things that we consider most important is talking to these people right after in a way to pull out the memories that they might forget later. So we audio record these sessions, and the goal is to give questions that aren't leading. So if you tell me you saw a bright light, I might ask you, was there a color there? Did you see anything else in the light? But what I wouldn't say was, oh, do you think it was an angel? Right. So the goal is to get as much that's purely them, but help them dig into it so they don't forget it. And those audio recordings can be extremely powerful for people to listen to after the ceremony, days later, weeks later. And when you get into the integration, that can really help you remember those lessons. Even if during the audio of the ceremony itself, you're just grunting, every one of those grunts will take you right back to that space where you made that grunt. So it is really one of the most powerful things to go in and listen to these afterwards. The way that we dose people, we have them spend the night at the God Sitter's house, so you're not driving, you're not doing anything afterwards. We do our best to just make sure you're comfortable and have a place to rest. The next day, it is very important that you don't have anything to do. This should be time that you just use for yourself to understand what you just went through, because you just went through something pretty crazy. That, I think, generally is best just you meditating on it yourself before even talking to somebody else about it, because those people could potentially influence what you're getting out of it. After that, there's a lot of people who do integration, and it can be really important, depending on what you're going through, to have somebody to talk to about it weeks and months later. This could even just be a good friend. It's just, talking it out and talking through the experience helps you a lot. And a lot of the integration groups, that's really what's going on, is it's just everybody feeling comfortable to tell their story and say it out loud and find the connections. But it is really important that the day after the experience, you reserve for yourself. Maybe go for a nice hike, maybe just lay in bed all day, just do something that's just for you so you can get used to being back in your body and understand what just happened to you. Any other questions? I think we still have a little time before 4:20. Guy up. Well, that's how you can tell I did it. I'm extremely dyslexic, so if you've ever seen something that we did that had a typo in it, that's my fault. That is the most hilarious typo too, because I do. Man, yeah, I'm bad. What else did I screw up? Oh, no. One slide. Oh, God. Well, it's better than last year. Last year, the sermon said East Sermon instead of Easter, and nobody caught it until we were looking at the video footage. So that's how you know I did it. Yeah.
Hi, David.
Yeah.
So when I think of church, I associate it with like a spirit moving within the church. So to you, what is the spirit of the Church of Ambrosia?
Your soul. I think that is the most important spirit there is. And it's individual to each of us. If church was to teach you what they really should be teaching you, is that you have a soul. You are the higher power. You came here to do something. It's not some old dude with a beard. There are deities out there, and there are some good and some bad on the other side, but the one that's most important and what our true goal is to get you in touch with the power that you have, your soul. No, nothing else. Anything else? Man, I love my typos. I've done some really good ones over the years. But I think you all can probably find us, and hopefully you won't hold me too accountable for my bad spelling. Another one over here.
You're familiar with Dennis McKenna?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And he talks about possibly being able to travel interdimensionally through the brain. I've had a conversation with him about this. It's fascinating. What do you think about that?
It's completely possible. I would get a little weird and take it even further, that one of the things that I was shown, although I can't do, is I was told that we all used to be able to travel. When you think about everything being made out of consciousness, everything being made out of God, there's no difference between you and the air you breathe, the floor that you stand on, space and time and all that exists, because you are God. Now, for us to be able to actually harness that in our physical bodies and use it, those are teachings that are so deep. I know that they're there. I believe that they're there. It's not my time and probably not my place to teach humanity how to just poof onto another world, but in the experiences that I've had on these really deep doses, I have been to other worlds, I've been to other dimensions, I've been to other places. Could I snap my fingers and appear on the other side of the room right now? No. But in these doses, I've been to places where I have physical sensation in other worlds. So, is it possible? Yes. Is it purely in our mind? Maybe. Is there a way to do it in reality? We need more people to... So when I talk about the high dose work, there's 3 stages. The stage 1 is get past your trauma. We all have trauma. Stage 2 is understand what you are. And stage 3 is start learning the deeper truths and start doing things over there. If we had entire universities that were devoted to that, and we had, large groups of people, the type of technology and the type of power that we wield would be beyond anything we can currently imagine. Anyone else? Okay, well, let's go smoke some weed. Oh. Yeah? Do I have any what? Oh.
I just
Okay.
wanted to say that part of this event would not be possible without you, and so if we could just give him an amazing clap for everything bringing us together. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
For me, I've been wanting to work in community with Dave for many years, but I've been a bystander, and I'm so appreciative. I'm appreciative of you and the connection I've been able to have because of Mama Ayana, and just your work of literally spreading the spores in community. So just thank you so much.
Thank you all, and thank you for everything you did to put this together, too. Okay, time to go smoke some weed.